Okay, well, welcome everybody to Fieldstone4U. We love these webinars. These started out just organically that people would come to Robin or myself and ask for specific areas of, certain subject areas. And some people would volunteer right off the bat and say that they wanted a particular, that they wanted a particular topic, and Robin and I would go find the speaker. And then now we've got people coming out of the woodwork that say, we would love to share what we know and share our expertise. So Julie, you're going to hear from Julie, who's fabulous, and you're going to hear what she has to say about storytelling. But we just love our Fieldstone4Us, and we just think that these will continue into perpetuity. We hope they do. Some housekeeping, if you would make sure you mute your phones, that helps. Julie is going to share her screen. So what I like to do when somebody shares the screen is I put them on speaker view so that all I see is their screen and just the person talking. And that just helps me to just not get distracted because I want to give Julie 100% of my attention. So that's what I do. And I recommend that you do the same thing, and then you're not distracted by everybody else's faces. You feel free to put your questions in the chat. Robin will send a link to everybody following that, the link to our YouTube channel, so you'll have access to this recording. Julie, we ask that you send the PowerPoint deck to Robin, so Robin can also send that to the group at the same time, and any other supporting documents that you might have. If anybody has any resources that this prompts as you're hearing what Julie has to share, put those in the link in the chat, and then Robin will be sure to get those to you as well. I want to thank our friends over at First Republic Bank. They are our corporate sponsor, and they are what helps us to be able to deliver these timely and relevant topics to you. And we've had employment attorneys, and we've had HR consultants, and we've had network folks, and we've just had such a variety of people. Robin wrote down the whole list of all the topics that we've shared, and it's mind-boggling to see how much we have been able to share and how much we have learned from everybody. The PPP was a perfect example of that. Here we're telling everybody how to apply for the loan, and then all of a sudden Robin and I thought, wait a minute, why aren't we applying for the loan? And so we've learned as much as all of you. And so that's really what Fieldstone is all about. We talk about the spirit of reciprocity, and Julie happens to be in a learning group now. And so she's on the receiving end, but then she gives as much as she gets. And this is another example of her giving, is by giving us some time of hers. And so Julie, we really thank you. At this point, I would like to introduce our speaker, Julie Holdaway. And Julie is the Vice President and Assistant Executive Director at Mirage JCC. So I'm going to let Julie talk a little bit about herself, and then she's going to jump right into the presentation. So again, make sure you're muted. And just enjoy and ask questions in the chat, and then we'll catch up after, and I'll have some closing remarks. So Julie, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin. I am, it's such a pleasure to be a partner with the Fieldstone Network. So thank you for all you do and for our learning group, and for this opportunity to talk about one of my favorite topics. I guess I'm supposed to talk about myself. I'm Julie Holdaway. I've been at the Mirage JCC for 7 years. And prior to that, I know some of you from my 1OC days, where I worked, ran the training and consulting at 1OC for 7 years. And prior to that, I worked with foundations. So, so most of my entire career has been in nonprofits, but really looking at how to build capacity. And being a storyteller myself, I'm fully bought into the idea that we're going to change the world with our stories. So thank you for being here. And you get to learn a little bit about the science behind stories and how stories in all aspects of our life impact and influence folks to hopefully in some of the directions that we want. Although we'll see if stories help in November, but we're not going to talk about what happens in November. So I'm going to jump in and share. Let's see how share a PowerPoint. I'm happy to. So stories we're telling. Can you guys see that? You see that it's just the front cover of the stories we're telling. So if anyone has any questions, by the way, there's my email address. at any point in time, you can email me, and I'm happy to chat with you. I'm going to give you a secret. There's a test about midway through this presentation, and there is like one fantastic way to tell a great story. There is one secret. I'm going to give you lots of science behind it, but there is one secret, and that secret is that you have to practice. You have to tell stories frequently. So if you want someone to practice with, I'm all ears. So feel free to reach out to me at any time, happy to do so. So now you have my email, and as Robin said, I will send my PowerPoint. So stories they're universal. They cross boundaries in all cultures, in all languages, in all ages. We have myths, we have archetypes, we have movies and television and novels, and now we have Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. So stories are all around us. So one of my favorite quotes, next to hunger and thirst, our most basic human need is for storytelling. So today, my point is actually, you're already storytellers. My point is to offer you a quick outline to make storytelling easier so that you can create a stronger culture within your organization, so you can share it with the outline and the storytelling and cultivate stories within your volunteers, within your stakeholders, within your board. So really, I want you to leave here with a 4-point outline of this is kind of the secret behind telling stories. So, stories are powerful, they influence, they make a difference, but they're also how we tell our history. So we have Charlton Heston here, we know all the way back from biblical times, and prior to that, we have stories. I was just telling Robin, I was in Utah, and we saw stories along the walls, painted along the walls from thousands of years ago. So an example of when storytelling works with history, if you look at the American Revolution, we know that the American Revolution started with navigation acts and with this sugar and currency and quarantining and stamp acts and the Townsend Act. You probably don't remember the Townsend Act because there's not a great story around it, but the Tea Act has a great story around it, so perhaps you know it, and the Intolerable Acts. But that's just an outline of history. How do we really know about the Revolution? We know about stories about George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and now we all know stories about Alexander Hamilton, certainly. We know the Continental Congress, Paul Revere, and Betsy Ross. So it's how we tell our story, but more importantly, it's also how we learn, and it's how your constituents learn. Stories act as mnemonic devices for facts. So mnemonic's a big word. It makes, using jargon makes us all feel important, but it really just, we learn through stories. So if you think back to grade school where you had to learn the metric system, I think it's kilo, hecto, deca, deci, millimeters in there, but centimeters before millimeter. So we learned this system of measurements, metric system, but the really way most of us remember it is King Henry died drinking chocolate milk. So King is kilo, Henry is the hecto, died is the deca, drinking chocolate milk, decis, centa, and millimeter. So stories are how we learn. It's how we recall. I'm going to ask most of you, so do you remember what happened in 1492 in American history, or it wasn't quite America? So I know you're all on silence. I'm not going to get this feedback I'm accustomed to. 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So there's 1,000 dates in our school curriculum, but how we recall is through stories. So if you want your stakeholders, your board members, your donors to remember not just your organization, but what you do, and remember the sense of empathy they have with your organization, stories are what's going to do it. I also just want to throw in there, there's a ton of science. There's a ton of science about storytelling. Stories create bridges between people. So there's a neuroscientist in Princeton, his name is Dr. Uri Hassan, and he's demonstrated that when you tell stories, both your oxytocin, and your dopamine, and the folks who are hearing your stories, it both goes up. And what does oxytocin and dopamine go? It's easier to read than to say. They increase this trust, they increase empathy, but they really increase the bonding between storyteller and listener. So even though listening and telling stories are different processes, the art and science of telling a story builds those connections. And then just lastly, stories are how we define ourselves. They're how, I should be on the American Idol story. So how you really kind of contemplate yourself, your family, and your friends are through their stories. When you get together, when we were allowed to get together with our family and friends, and we'll be able to do so hopefully soon again, you grab a drink, a glass of wine or whatever, and you say, how was your week? And then people start their storytelling immediately. It's how we communicate, and it's how we tell our family and friends what we did today and who we are. So everyone has why I don't eat sushi or why I do eat sushi, my first broken bone, my first traffic ticket, my first car. We all have these stories, and this is how we think about ourselves. So hopefully that in a very short bit is a little bit about how storytelling is interwoven into every aspect of our lives and every relationship we have. So we need to, and we want to use that to elevate our organizations. So I'm going to quickly tell you the art of storytelling, but I want to really convince you that you're already storytellers, right? Because you learn, you recall, you connect with people, you have family, you have friends. You're telling stories all day long. So you're good storytellers. So the first art to telling a story, there's this very bizarre picture on the PowerPoint. It's of suspenders. So what I want to remind you of is when you go into the storytelling process and you're telling stories, or you're encouraging your board members, your volunteers, your constituents, your stakeholders to tell stories, the first thing is to think of the suspenders. Because we're our own worst critics, and the suspenders are going to tell you, suspend judgment. Just tell the story. Feel comfortable telling stories that we like to laugh sometimes at ourselves, sometimes at others, but don't judge. Just practice telling your story, but don't judge yourselves. And certainly we all think everyone else is judging us. They're not. We are our own worst critics. So that's the first art of is to suspend judgment. Wear your suspenders. To cultivate a organizational culture, you need to have a system in place to collect stories. So you're here, you're probably already predisposed to tell stories. You're hopefully passionate about stories, as I've kind of shared my own passions. But a storytelling organization, it doesn't just appear. Storytelling needs to become embedded in all aspects in the entire fabric of your organization's culture. So from executives have to have stories, the volunteers have to have stories, and your board members have to have stories, and your staff. Certainly your staff have to have stories. So a couple quick tactics, and then I'm going to go into a quick outline of these stories. But in every staff meeting, if you're doing it on Zoom now or in person, however you're doing that, someone should be sharing a story in each month. And I would give them a really small span to do it. It is often harder to write a short story than it is to write a long story. And if we want to encourage our board members and such to have elevator speeches, starting that with our employees. So I'd give them a 1 to 2 minute window of time to tell a story. And that means they really have to work on crafting that and practicing that. Staff newsletters, The one thing we have at our organization about 3 or 4 times a year, we send out an email and say, anyone send us a testimonial or a quote that we can make into a story, they get M&Ms. So it's a, it's a cheap way to incentivize folks. For some reason, you send it out at 2 o'clock. Everybody wants their sugar high. And the reason we select M&Ms, you can select anything, but M&Ms to us is M&Ms mission moments. So it's really a focus on mission moments and capturing those stories. So ensuring they're on your website and everything is a way to start building the culture within your organization. All right, so there's a story structure. You learned this, I think, probably in 7th grade when you had to write your first novel, at least in California curriculum. There's a beginning. You introduce your character. The trick to this is your story needs to be about one person. So your organization probably serves 500 people or 1,000 people, or maybe it serves 20 people. But your story is about one person. So in your story, you have to use a name so that you can connect me as the audience member to it. So you need a name. I don't think in your story you need to use a real name. I don't even recommend using your real name. But I also don't think you need to say the names have been changed to protect the innocent. It's a story and it represents what you do. The only exception is that if you're ever talking to a reporter, just the facts. Use the name, have permission to use the name, but and otherwise I would just select the name that works for you. The who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin? Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. Okay, again, we're on Zoom, we don't have a lot of interaction. We're gonna go with that, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Sorry if I'm wrong. But she was the author of Uncle Tom's Cabin. At the time of its writing, was annihilated in the press, that there is no Uncle Tom. And the author, I think Harriet Beecher Stowe, came out and said, there's 1,000 Uncle Toms. So in that case, I think you put a story to a name. I mean, you put a name to a story and that builds a connection. You can't go in blindly without a name. We don't connect to nameless folks. So, but you only want one name. So there, I have a story about Heather, and Heather wakes up before dawn each morning so that she can get up to go to work stocking candy machines at 5 a.m. She puts in a 2-hour shift, then she returns home so her fiance can leave for work. She then spends the next hour preparing her 3 children, making lunches, preparing breakfast, and delivering them to school, while her fiance has 2 jobs as a cook and works 6 days a week. The story goes on. It's about the food bank and how, despite the juggling of, and Heather has another job, despite the juggling of 4 jobs, the food bank still on a monthly basis provides them with the nutrients that their family needs. In that story, it's about Heather, and you can kind of feel and experience Heather's struggles. There's a fiance and 3 kids, and there's actually also a caseworker who helps her at the food bank. But we make it about Heather. So if we pull in too many names, then we get distracted, and again, we're not connected with the protagonist. So your story structure is about a single person. Yes, I know you serve 2,500, 1,000 people. You have to choose one people, otherwise it becomes overwhelming. And then you have a middle, that arc, that conflict, and also details, depending on if it's a 30-second elevator speech or a 3-minute elevator speech, gives you how much detail. And again, if it's a 30-second elevator speech, that's going to take a lot more crafting and a lot more practice. Harder to do short than it is to do long. There's a quote by General Lee from the Civil War that says, "Sorry for the length of this letter, I did not have time to write a shorter one." So in the middle, so it takes practice to craft this short one, but you need a conflict. Now at the end, we're accustomed to they walked off into the sunset. And many of your organizations deliver that. So your stories will have this happy ending. But they don't have to. They just have to appeal to the empathy and to the recall of your listener. So I have a story. It's years old at this point, but I did consulting with the board of Casa Teresa. And I was meeting with their development committee years ago. I was running up the stairs towards the meeting, and there was a woman I had met earlier, one of their clients, Beth. And as I'm running up the stairs, she's sitting on the steps outside. And I said, "Hi, Beth." And she was like, "Hi, how are you? It's my birthday today." She was super excited. My dad's taking me out for my birthday, which I thought was brilliant. 2 hours later, I run down the stairs, and there's Beth sitting by herself in the living room. And in my head, how Casa Teresa is teaching our young women, pregnant women, how to be parents, but how can she really learn when her father was never really a good parent? So to me, that's kind of one of those examples that there's not a happy ending in the story. You can kind of assume Casa Teresa provides that, but your story does not always have to be the full story with that ending. But it does, I just want you to leave, it does have to have a beginning, a middle, and the end. The focus would be on the beginning and the end. That's what people are going to remember the most. And it has to have a character, a protagonist with a name. Okay, so that's a short bit about the stories, but I wanted to share a story. I think even Airbnb tells a story. So in 2007, Joe and I opened up our home to the first Airbnb guests. So if you go on their website, Airbnb tells their story. I really like this example. This is a blog example talking about the cloud, which the cloud often confounds me. But I personally like to thank Apple for explaining the cloud to my mom. To me, that's brilliant. He's talking about the cloud through his mom. It's a great story because we all can have some kind of connection to that idea of helping someone who's older than ourselves understand technology. I am going to switch my share for a moment and show you this one video. We are now testing my own technology, so wish me good luck on this. Let's share screen. This is I did it wrong. Oh, where's this great video? This is a great video. I'm going to try it one more time and then we may have to give up, but let's see if PowerPoint. Okay.
Can you find it on your screen? Can you find it on your computer?
I have 4 different versions and it's all telling me it's PowerPoint. So
it wasn't the surf camp one?
It was.
Okay, we could see that.
I think what you're seeing is just the you're seeing a picture of it in my
Oh, is a slide?
Yeah, okay, wait. Oh, there we go.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, you can hear it. I'm trying to pause it now. Hold on.
We get them down to the beach, the kids are going to scream. Some of the kids, they don't know how to speak. The only words that come out of their mouth is screaming.
Can you guys see and hear this?
Yeah.
Okay, starting.
It's perfect for us to see them screaming.
Turn it up.
My name is Izzy Paskowitz, and I've been running surf camps for autistic kids for 7 years. We get them down to the beach. The kids are going to scream. Some of the kids, they don't know how to speak. The only words that come out of their mouth is screaming. It's perfect for us to see them screaming and the kicking when they go out. And when they turn around and ride that wave in, it's just nothing like it. And there's the parents, tears in their eyes, saying, man, we've had a lot of tough times, but today was just a perfect day.
So I like that video. It was an award winner one from ESPN from years back. But that video is about, I mean, they used one name, they used Izzy, and he's not even the character receiving the organization services. He's the founder. The video's not really even about him. It's about these amazing kids. But he didn't want to select one, but the story was about Izzy, and I think that's kind of a 1 minute story. There's a beginning, there's an arc, and there's an end. And there's 1,000 stories online on your websites. There's 1,000 stories. So I'm going back to my PowerPoint, but I just wanted to share that one to show you that they can be short, and oh, look at that. How's this for Julie's story? All right. So that's just one of my favorite there. Charity Water has a ton of stories on there. There's Orangewood Foundation locally, and OC Goodwill's Orange County Goodwill has them if you want examples of them. But again, that importance of connecting, of telling a name and such is important. But I am going to, Loretta is a great story from Google. This is what I really want you to remember. This is kind of the shortcut. So hopefully I've spent this time telling you why stories are important and helping you kind of craft your already there skills. But I wanted to give you a quick outline on how you can prepare your stories, and you can have a variety of stories, but how you can also work with your staff and with your volunteers and with your executives and with your board members on how they can have their own stories. Because again, organization-wide, it needs to happen. There's 4 parts to a story that influences. This research was done as it started with donor letters. It's moved on to kind of a greater sense, a greater connection to fundraising, but also to press releases and to how our web and our materials should be developed. So there's 4 parts to any storytelling, any elevator speech that you would tell. So the first is the story, is the protagonist, is the illustration of who you are and what you are through one single person. This part is the most important part, and it's going to connect. And I'm going to come back to you though, and all the storytelling evidence will talk against facts and numbers. Facts and numbers are big and not relatable. People turn off from numbers in general, but you throw a number at a person and they immediately become skeptical. Instead of listening to the context that you're creating, they now analyze that number within their own experiences, within their own history. So if you don't connect it to your story, they're immediately skeptical. So your facts need to complement. Did someone have a question? I'm happy to answer. The call to action. You really don't ever want to be with a possible donor or volunteer without asking them to do something for you, to connect them to you. So that call to action may be different. You may just be asking your board member to come to Tuesday's meeting. In general, most people who want to know about storytelling, it is about connecting them to your mission. And it's about giving them an opportunity to participate. So it may be, I usually use the gala example of coming to a gala. I guess that's not going to happen in the next year. But that call to action to be a part of this, to support it, to give your $1,500 that will allow Beth and the 18 other moms who live in our home to learn how to be moms. And then the credibility the credibility is the piece that is about your organization. That is the piece that you say. That's the piece that where you list how many years you've been doing this, you list what your mission is, you give the credibility. That's the thing most of our organizations are comfortable telling you. So I'll tell you, the Mirage JCC is all about building continuity for the Jewish community in Orange County. That is our mission. But it really means nothing without this greater story about Eloise. Eloise is one of the 1,800 seniors that we work with, and she's part and has been part of our books club for something like 10 years. Eloise is 88 years old and is losing her eyesight. Pre-COVID, she was losing her eyesight. And she'd been part of this book club for so long. The book club gathered, and the 40 other people who participate take turns reading to Eloise so she can continue to participate. And that is what the Mirage JCC is all about. So as you can, I threw in a fact there. I told you how many seniors we participate in, but I made it about Eloise. So this outline, the story, the fact, the call to action, and then the credibility, I think you're probably good at, is the outline in terms of telling a story that influences. So I just want to kind of throw this out. This is from Orangewood Foundation's website. It's right on their front page. You get to meet Jacqueline. Jacqueline has been one of their star students for years, and then you'll see right underneath that story, you'll see a number, 735. Last year we provided resources to 735 youth. So they do 4 numbers with the hopes that nobody's going to remember all 4, but that the audience will connect to at least one of those numbers. So that you have your story connected with a number. And then you have your compelling delivery. And of course, you want to connect with the audience, which that means that you have a few stories in your back pocket. So if you think they're interested in seniors, you can talk about seniors. At the Mirage JCC, I can also talk about Lucas, who was kicked out of 3 preschools and came to our preschool and worked with our teachers. And Lucas was able, through the support of the teachers, was stopped biting and started really connecting to his community. And there's more details, but so you connect. I have like 12 stories depending on the interest of my audience. Again, I said pay attention to beginning and end. That's what people remember. And I haven't done this, and you certainly need to do this, but breathe. Use pregnant pauses to emphasize the important part. But I said, I don't know, we'll see if in our very quiet Zoom, I said there was a test midway through. There is actually one way in which to make your story particularly compelling. One way that you are going to tell a really good story, does anybody remember? And I have like no way of telling because I can't see your faces. So I can see Robin's face. Robin says she remembers.
Melinda just put it into the chat.
There you go. So yes, indeed, you practice. It's like being on, you practice, you say it once, you say it again, you say it again, you say it again. You talk to your shower, you talk to your mirror in your bathroom, you talk to your significant other, your children, your next door neighbor. You need to practice. Some people may find that awkward. I'm just going to tell you, you're never going to be a good storyteller until you tell that story at least 5 times. Okay, so I do want to throw in facts. This is all about stories, and all the research talks about that the numbers don't matter. But when you're influencing donors, the numbers matter. So 5% of our audience remembers statistics, 63% of audience remembers stories, again, that they're connected to. But the facts that we have are meaningless without the context of the story. And the story is also not as impactful without the facts, because the story about Beth, who sat on the doorsteps of Casa Teresa, that was a moving story is a moving, really, it was a moving experience. But then I talk about the 18 women who live in the home, and our very smart investors, our very smart donors can do the math. So we do tend to believe stories more readily when we have the facts to support them. The story is the most important part, but we need the stats, the facts. Our brains process narratives and expository, which numbers fall in expository. They process them differently, and by bringing both together, it becomes a stronger sense of influence. So I'm going to ask you guys, by the way, at the end, for a number. I don't have time to craft a story with you. Again, if you want my help, if you craft a story and want to practice, I'm happy to help you edit that after this. But I am going to ask you for a quick fact, and we'll at the end of this, and we'll see what we all come up with. So this is interesting, MAD. This year, 10,839 people will die in drunk driving crashes. 1 in every 50 minutes. 1 in 3 people will be involved in an alcohol-related crash in their lifetime. So they have lots of numbers on their website. These numbers overwhelm. These numbers, especially given the topic, the top people, many of you work with really rough topics. So you have to be careful with that, creating that sense of fear and creating connection. And the connection is about the hope. You may not have your happy ending quite yet, but you're giving them hope. Casa Teresa is working with Beth, so there is hope, and we're going to assume there's a happy ending. So the numbers overwhelm unless they match a story. And this is certainly a story, but more so, this is a story. You don't even have, you say a fact, and then you talk about Jacqueline, and you've got your story and your facts, and now I'm connected to you. So again, we're at the story time, the opportunity. I'm about to ask you to go off silence, so prepare yourselves because you're about to be tested. But what I really want you to know is this 4-part outline. The story with a name and a beginning, middle, and end, even if it's 30 seconds or it's 3 minutes. Or I just read Handmaid's Tale about what Offred, there's like 1 character with a name in Handmaid's Tale. So I think I did that on Audible on vacation. So it was a 12-hour story. So the story is dependent on the circumstances, but you have the story with a named character. You have a fact to grab the attention, so they're paying attention. It also, and then your call to action and credibility. I am going to stop sharing, and I am going to ask you guys for what your fact is. You probably have 100 facts for your organization. So I'll tell you, at the JCC, we made over 10,000 calls to seniors. We being us, staff and 200 members, we called over 10,000 calls to seniors during COVID to make sure that our community was connected, to make sure that people were doing well. So that's just one fact. I can give you a lot more, but what's your fact? I'm going to go up and down this list, and you're all still muted. So can we unmute them, Robin? Because the fact is generally relates to a story, we're going to assume your story from the fact, but I'm going to test you guys, not test you, but I'm going to ask you a fact. And Melinda, I love your smile. Thank you for getting on video and sharing with us. I'm going to start with you. Do you have a fact for Special? You must have a lot for Special Olympics. What's one fact, one number? It has to be a number.
That we provide, or we have about 38,000 athletes that participate in our year-round sporting competitions and practices. It's not a COVID. It's not a COVID.
Yeah, everything's pre-COVID. Is that 38,000 in Orange County or?
No, Southern California, from San Diego all the way up to San Luis Obispo County.
And I can just imagine you have probably more than 38,000 stories then.
Yes.
Yeah. So if she told one story about someone named Ryan or her own Beth, and then she said there's 38,000 participants in Special Olympics, you can imagine kind of that balance and how that influences both sides of our brain. All right, Emily, are you still with me? Do I get to pick on you since I know you?
Hi, Julie. Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, what do you have a fact for IHO?
Yeah, so as a nonprofit affordable housing developer, we serve over 900 families and youth in our communities. I would say since COVID, we've connected our residents with over 1,000 resources.
That's wonderful. And then I would presume you would be able to tell us a story about a wonderful family with a head of household that would move us and make us want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna start. Where's Pam? Pam, are you still with me, Pam? I don't see your name, but did we lose Pam? What did she say? All right, it was nice seeing Pam for a second. All right, I'm losing people because you're afraid to give me facts. All right, Diane, share a fact with me, Diane. Oh, Diane, I'm gonna give you a second. I'm coming back to you. I'm gonna give you a second to unmute. But Michelle Reinhardt, you are unmuted. Thank you very much. What's your fact?
Well, I work with Emily at Innovative Housing Opportunities. So I can add to her facts that we have over 6 affordable housing properties or developments, and that adds to about 566 units. So we put multifamilies into those and individuals and formerly homeless into those units.
That's amazing. Yeah, I would, just for a hint with your fact, if
Yes.
you not use the word unit, I don't know if that's possible. I know it's difficult, but unit is very impersonal, but it's a fantastic fact.
Homes or houses, that type of thing. Homes.
Yeah, I just try in terms of the storytelling part of it to avoid the use of the word unit, but thank you and welcome. Thanks for joining us. All right, let's see who Keegan, I think you must be very busy and you must have lots of stories to tell, and your world must change on a daily basis because my kid is about to start for school. So Keegan, do you have a fact for us?
Sure. So we serve over 36,000 students district-wide through classroom support, after school, and summer enrichment programs.
36,000, that's a big number. That's fantastic. So with that, you would talk about one of your students who, and especially I think probably right now during COVID, you must have a lot of stories. So
lots to talk about.
All right, let's see. Kevin, you and I have been on a couple of these calls together. I've never met you, but it's a pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
No worries. Sorry, I got my newborn with me and my toddler's running around, so I've had to be unmuted and our fact is during COVID, Solidarity works with mostly undocumented immigrant communities who were not able to receive any sort of federal stimulus, and so we were able to pass out just about $65,000 worth of relief funds to neighbors that got directly in the hands of neighbors.
That's fantastic. I would also just take kind of the emotional aspect and just add, like, we were able to, you want to help families, build families, kind of, instead of pass out, just try. I know I just put you on the spot, so but use kind of that more emotional active verb rather than passing it. Oh, I get another one. Yay. All right. At the end of this, Kevin, I'm offering babysitting services. So, all right. Who I got? Melinda, I got Michelle. Is it Payal?
Palau doesn't have a microphone. She's working from home, doesn't have a microphone.
Oh, she lucked out. I don't get to pick on her, huh? Let's see. Maria Jose? Is it Maria? I shouldn't have done this when I have to read. Usually people introduce themselves to me in the beginning. Is it Maria Jose Garorti?
Not unmuted. Maybe she's stepped away. Let's go to Chris. Let's go to Christy.
All right, Christy. I can pronounce Christy.
Oh,
Did I lose Christy too? That's okay. I know we're all multitasking during the during our many Zooms. All right, Robin, I'm gonna pick on you. What are your facts?
So I was thinking, you know, to combat isolation in the nonprofit space, we provide programming specifically designed to help our 350 organizations in Orange County.
There you go. Fantastic. I would use a different word than programming, just as a hint. We provide solutions. We provide leadership skills. We provide, you know, strong networks that allow our organizations to grow. Just a couple of hints.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say throughout this epidemic, we've provided over 30 different opportunities for people to connect within our network.
That's fantastic. So, and I just would add, because I'm trying to do the American Idol where there's, but I would add, there's 30 different opportunities, and I'd throw in, and 400 people participated. To make it about the people, because really it should always, every fact should somehow be about the people. So essentially that's what, when we talked about units, we wanted to talk about whether they're families or individuals and such like that. I'm gonna give you one hint. It is difficult sometimes for our board members who don't live and breathe our mission every day, although sometimes it feels like they're right there every day. But some hints on how we've helped boards in the past, kind of remember the facts. I'm trying to look for my business card with me, but we print out business cards about every 6 to 8 months with new facts. Business cards, you get what, 250 for $46 or something like that. And the business card has our mission on one side to remind our board members, our volunteers, our stakeholders, what we're doing this for. And on the other side, it has 5 to 6 different stats in which, and we ask them to put it in their wallet with their debit card. So every time they pull out their debit card, they're glancing at this business card, and it just kind of reinforces stats and facts that they can then remember every time they're telling a story. We also give a challenge to board members. We ask them, you know, in the next 30 days, who can tell the story 5 times? Who can tell the story 10 times? This is putting our board members, their responsibility is to be out there, to be our spokespeople, finding the opportunities to tell our story. And we do also do M&Ms and mission moments at each of our board meetings. So we ask our board members to tell a 2-minute story about our mission of our organization. And probably for you guys, that's gonna be a little bit harder because not all board members actually interact with our clients and our constituents. What it requires them to do 2 minutes, what it requires them is to work with you, to actually experience the mission and to be able to translate that story. So our board members, we started that about 2 years ago. That has been popular bar none. So those are just a few quick tactics to kind of integrate your board into this outline, this 4-part outline. Are there any questions? Yes, Robin.
It sounds to me like a good exercise for all of us would be to craft something short and sweet and personal, maybe tying in kind of post-pandemic, like Robin said, you know, since the pandemic, this is how we've responded, blah, 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 in a very personal way. Maybe share that with our board and encourage them to kind of be thinking about this.
Unequivocally. I mean, it's really our role to make sure our board is experiencing our mission. So for some of you, that's easier than others because the boards are part of it. But if they're not, and especially during COVID, if they can't come in and see, you have to be creative. It becomes your role to integrate them into your mission to make sure they have the stories. So yes, practice, tell them stories, tell them you're doing this exercise, and can they give you feedback on this story? Ask them what stories they've experienced. A lot of them, when you introduce them to your organization, you gave them a tour, they met someone, they have stories in their back of their head. They may just need to practice or craft it. You may need to give them a stat that complements it. Any other questions?
Christy said she tried to unmute. Christy, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now. Do you want to share your story?
I don't know why it wasn't working. I can't remember. Was it a stat just about COVID or general?
No, just you had just talked about
your organization.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Generally, only 10% of foster youth attend college, and we serve about 33 students a year, and 100% of them attend college.
That's a good stat, and especially 100%. I mean, you can't beat that stat. So just my only hint with that, of course, you're going to pair up with a story about someone. That's fantastic. Right. I would use some pregnant pauses in there because you have 3 really facts in one statement.
Okay. Without
the pregnant pause, you're really asking them to kind of percolate on a lot.
Gotcha.
So,
I have a question too.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot of speaking, and I heard another, speaking consultant say to start off with like kind of a shocking statistic, but what you said was interesting, that then people are processing that number, and that makes complete sense to me. So is it better to start with the story and then go into the stats later in the talk?
So let me tell you this. I think when I go back to my outline, the stories and the facts, I think they can flip. It really depends on your comfort as a storyteller. It's your story, and I want you to own it. So it can flip, but it has to be closely aligned, because you start throwing too many numbers at them without the story. As you said, I've gone into skeptical, I've gone into analysis. But in your case, in the example you just gave, you could say something like 10%. Was it, I'm sorry, now I have to clarify. You can see where my recall is. 10% graduate from high school or college?
No, not even 10% graduate. Only 10% of foster kids try to go to college. Only 3% graduate.
Okay, so I would do only 10% of foster kids even attempt to get into college, and only 3% graduate.
So that's usually what I start off with.
Yeah, I think that's good. And then tell your story, and then say 100% of our kids graduate.
Well, I wish that were the case, but no.
I thought you just said 33, all 100%.
Well, they all attend. They don't all complete.
Okay. And 100%, sorry then, 100% of our kids attend college.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Which organization are you with?
Inspire.
Okay. So I think you can flip it around, but I would use in a press release, you're going to use the stat or the fact first. In a donation letter, in an annual appeal letter, you're going to want to start with a very quick stat, but it's going to be a 1 or 2 line, and then you're going to have your story right there. Right. When you are telling the story, you don't want to do all your stats. You want to grab their attention, and then you really want their attention to the story. And right. Then if you can throw in a fact after the story, it again justifies. And 33 of our kids this year went to college.
Right. I also, if I can, Robin, if I can make a plug for the Storytellers Conference, the Nonprofit Storytellers Conference, if any of you've gone. I've gone, well, I went 1 year, and then I sent my grant writer 1 year. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I've gone too. And there's several blogs that are great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And if you have any opportunity to listen to Andy Goodman, he has a great website as well. He's kind of my guru that I want.
If you can, Christy, put any link in the chat, and then Robin can share that with everybody, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's, well, yeah, it's virtual in October. It was supposed to be in Chicago, which is a bummer, but yes, I will find the information and share it.
Thank you. And Kevin has something. Oh, that baby, Kevin.
I know.
Yeah, she's out right now. It's hot. So we've been having this issue. Do you have any guidelines on how to make sure that your storytelling really upholds the dignity of your clients and don't just self-serve the organization or just cater to the formula that works so well with fundraising, where our poor clients face this issue, they met our wonderful organization, now give us money so that we can keep doing it. Like that.
Yeah, you
what are
know,
some guidelines to fight that?
One hint is the story's not about your organization, right? That you're gonna let the listener, the donor, the volunteer, the board member make that connection. And yes, at the very end, you're gonna throw in what you are, but the really point to a story is it's about the person and it's about connecting me to the person. So they, you don't want to overwhelm. If you're telling a 3-minute story, you don't want a minute and a half to be about your organization. You don't want it to be about the mission and here's all of our programs and let me tell you about everything. What you want them to do is ask really for the next step, whatever that next step may be. So really crafting the story about the person is the most important thing to remember. Your organization is really about the people and telling the story. And the dignity of it has a lot to do with the culture of your organization and how you treat your clients. You know, we know all volunteers want to work directly with clients and it's not always possible. It's not, I had, what was Larry from Mercy House once told me, like, we are not a petting zoo. You're not, you know, we're not bringing volunteers here just to, that becomes about, I think the dignity of it means crafting some of the detail that pulls at my heartstrings without going too far. There are stories, you all have them, where bad things happen to people again and again and again and again. We don't need that, right? We just need kind of the heart of it, the struggles, but the hope as well. So I hope that answered your question about dignity, but I think a lot of that comes from how you guys treat your clients. Did that answer it?
Julie,
Yeah,
quick question.
I might follow up with you in an email later on, just because we've been having some issues on how we tell stories that I feel could be better.
Happy to chat with you about it.
Okay, that'd be good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Julie, quick question. This is Maria Jose Garorti. Sorry, I wasn't able to speak before. I'm over the phone as well here, multitasking.
No way, no problem.
I'm so sorry.
Kind of okay, sorry.
Okay, how about these stats? During the 2019-2020 fiscal year, we have helped over 300,000 individuals and families just at our food distribution center alone.
Okay, so just really quickly, I would not say 2019-2020 fiscal year. That impersonalizes it. Remember, this is about the people. Just say last year.
I see.
The past year.
Okay.
We have helped 300,000 people through our food distribution alone. I think that's meaningful and big and huge. It's a big number. That number for me is hard to really picture what 300 families are. So you're going to immediately need to launch into a story about Heather or
yes.
So you have to
great.
That big number. Anything that goes in the thousands is generally larger than our heads imagine. So you do need to personalize it.
Sounds good. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Maria Jose?
Yes?
If you'd like her slideshow, I'm going to need your email address. I do not have it. So
yes, I actually put it in the chat room. I put my email there. Yeah, my executive director sent me the information to join. So in the chat room, I put it in there. Are you able to see it?
I can't find it in there, so
Okay, let me put it again, okay?
thank you.
Thanks to you, thank you.
You know, Julie, I have just like a little side story, an anecdote that helped me. So I worked for Share Ourselves back in 2000, and they were really, I think, one of the first organizations to do the whole adopt a family for Christmas. And you know, you always got the donor that said, I want to come and see that family. Like, I want to bring my privileged children to your organization and to their home at Christmas time, and I want to give the gifts and watch these children cry. And like, I mean, they would say these things and out of the goodness of their heart. I mean, they meant well. But the executive director, I'll never forget, Karen McGlynn, just so eloquently said, our goal and our mission is to empower the families. We want to give it to the parents so that the parents can have the dignity of providing Christmas for their own family. And Share Ourselves was like an afterthought. It wasn't even like this is Share Ourselves, we've come to save the day, or this is Joe Smith that has come to save the day. This mom and dad now get to provide Christmas for their family because of what you have given. And I've never forgotten that, because to me that speaks to what Kevin just was talking about preserving the dignity of the families that we serve. It's not about us, it's not about the donor, but it's about crafting that story so that you can still engage the donor while preserving the dignity of the client.
Right. And it's educating and explaining, and so that they're still connected. So
Robin, I just had to deal with that yesterday with a service club, and they bring one of my house's birthday gifts, it was very appreciated. But this lady was super upset because the gal was in the shower when she showed up to bring her birthday cake and birthday gift. Mm-hmm. And so I was on a Zoom call with this whole entire club, right? And so I had to say, well, I just want you to know that they know that the community is caring about them and that providing those little touches really makes a difference. However, it might be awkward for them, you know, to have to like meet somebody new, and, you know, she probably just got home from work or whatever, you know, like they're busy, you know, young adults. But I get what you're saying. I get those calls all the time, but we want to go talk to the kids. We want to go. Right. And I had to tell her, like, their social emotional needs are being met through their mentors, their case managers. It's not going to be you dropping off one gift. You know, I mean, I said it kind of nicer than that, but that's the truth.
Right. Right. So Julie, how would you, maybe to wrap this up, how would you frame that? How would you share, what story would you share with a donor or a potential donor to preserve that dignity?
Okay, so I do have to say, well, I mean, I think being honest, really, I mean, part of it is the education, right? Nobody means to be, you know, no one's trying to rip someone's dignity away. And we don't always understand other people's experiences. I worked with a homeless program in San Francisco, and we had to do a lot of education with our donors to suggest we were providing job skills, but jobs to people who are formerly homeless and homeless, like recent, chronic homeless. And they didn't always, in this particular case, a lot of our clients struggled to wake up in the morning and make it to work on time, and didn't always make it every day. And it was a different work ethic. So a lot of it for us was just talking and teaching, like, hey, you know, it's different. But I love these examples of, you know, teaching your children how to support our community. You get to do that by going to the store, talking about what they might like. You don't have to talk about that they don't have money or they don't have food. You just have to talk about, we're going to go help someone. And what is the good aspects of that? We're going to give to someone else who may not be as lucky as us. So for us, in terms of our organization, when we adopt families here, we use that term, not quite as lucky as us, because they do have things. And we don't use the word poor, because I don't know about, I mean, I have a lot of folks probably here that work with populations with different means, but everybody has something to give and to share. So we separate. We don't even offer, and people ask and here at our organization to meet clients and such. And it's just not an option because they're living their lives and we can support them in the way we do it. And we teach our kids to do that through kind of contemplation of what people need. And I don't think I'm answering your question well.
No, I think it's just food for thought for all of us to think about how can we continue to tell a really beautiful, engaging, compelling story with a call to action while preserving the dignity of our clients.
And that's critical. We're not using their stories, to exploit them.
Correct.
Way. We're talking about a really important missions and
right.
that the missions are changing the world.
Yeah. No, this was wonderful. Julie, thank you so much. People have had to jump off. We went a little over, but Robin will put this on the YouTube. She'll send all of you the link. Feel free to share it on your own personal social media platforms and professional platforms.
If anyone wants to practice, I'm happy to kind of help you craft a story.
We will be in touch for sure, huh, Robin?
Yes, we will. Thank you.
Julie, thank you again from the bottom of our hearts. We're so appreciative. And thank you to everybody. Be well and keep reading Robin's emails. We have lots of emails going out in the next couple of weeks. Lots of things going on. We're getting ready for our 2021 programming, and we'd love to see you continue to participate. So thank you, everybody. Much appreciated.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Take care.
Or week or evening.
Yes.
All right.